Welcome everyone to the Brass Spring 2023 Online Symposium. I'm Angel Truesdale, the Chair of the Business Reference and Academic Libraries Committee for Brass and the Chair of the Symposium Subcommittee. Thank you to our subcommittee, Christy Cunningham, Brian Garrison, and Christine Pollock. All sessions will be recorded and sent out to those who have registered. Please mute your audio and video as we get started. Thank you for spending time with Brass and our presenters today. Now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Christine, to get us started.
Hi, everybody. Welcome again. My name's Christine Pollock. I'll be moderating this session. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I'd like to welcome Doris Dwee from the University of Miami to talk about launching the next big thing, a blueprint for rolling out your next service. So take it away, Doris.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you for that confirmation. All right. I want to apologize to everyone. For some reason, I had big technical difficulties this morning and my webcam is not working. So I do apologize about that. But the important thing is the presentation and what I have to share with you today. All right, so thanks, Christine. As I am Doris Dwee, the head of the Business Library at the University of Miami. My business library is 100% virtual and there is no print collection. Since its opening in 1999, numerous services have been launched. And so there were many successes and there are also failures during that time. And so I continually revised my strategy. And over the years, I have developed a blueprint to launch successful library services. My goal today is to delve into the blueprint's key elements and examine the questions necessary to fulfill those key elements. But before we look at the list of essential elements, I'd like to conduct a poll. So this will be our first poll, and it's to gauge how many services your library has implemented since January of 2021. Okay, the numbers are coming in. That's great. Thank you. So we're seeing that some have implemented nothing. Everything stayed status quo. Others, it's looking like at least one or two. And there's an 8%. So of 4 or more. That's great. That's really great. That's wonderful. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for providing me with your contributions to the poll. It's great to see this variety of responses, and also the fact that it's encouraging also to see that people are keep maintaining what they have. And also others have gone out and introduced new services. I'd like now to go ahead and end this poll. And what I'm going to do is begin with the sharing of my key elements. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first key element, which is very, very important, is that service purpose. And so within a service purpose, the first question that I've always asked myself is, I'm sorry. I seem to be having more technical difficulties. My apologies. Okay. Here we go. Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So these are the 7 key elements that I have developed, and there's a list, of 7. Within each element, there are pertinent questions that one should be addressing to ensure the effective positioning of your service and improve its likelihood of success. So we're going to get started with service purpose. All right, my screen does not want to go anywhere. This is so very strange. Okay, here we go. The first question that you want to ask when you're looking to examine service purpose is, what specific need or problems does this library service address? This question addresses the specific challenges, problems, or frustrations your target audience is facing. And this might include, your library patrons not knowing where to start with their research. Maybe they have difficulty with navigating complex databases, or there is a lack of access to certain resources. Another question that you should be asking when you start thinking about launching a new service, and it's under the key element of service purpose, is what are the key features and benefits of this library service? With this question, one wants to identify the key features and benefits that your service offers to help your library patrons understand why they should use your service. For example, perhaps your new service maximizes their research time or contributes to their career growth through hosted events. So that's, I think, very important question to be thinking about when you're putting together your proposal for this service purpose. All right, the next question is, how does this library service complement or enhance existing library resources and services? One needs to consider how this new service fits into the larger picture of library resources and services. Does this service help fill any gaps or address any unmet needs? Lastly, how is this service better for the user when compared to existing solutions available? This is an important question because one needs to analyze the competition. The competing services in academic settings, at least I have found at the University of Miami, were other departments on campus, and also the other thing that I have found when I speak to my colleagues at public libraries is in the public library setting, it's sometimes workshops that are offered by government agencies that, that is definitely a competitor to what they're trying to do, especially if it tends to deal with career development. So this examination ensures that your service offers a unique value to your user. The second key element is target audience. And by asking the next set of questions, you can develop a more complete understanding of your target audience and create a library service that meets their specific needs and preferences. So first question is, who is the primary user group for this library service? You need to determine the specific group or groups of library users who will benefit from this service. It could be students, researchers, maybe the physically challenged, or just local community members. One example that I always like to mention is the Gwinnett County Public Library. This library was awarded an ALA grant to create an entrepreneurship incubator specifically for formerly incarcerated individuals. And I think this is a really wonderful service. So there are lots of groups that one can target and develop a service for. The next question is, what are the key characteristics of this user group? I think it's important to consider the demographics, the psychographics, and behavioral factors. This would include the gender, age, interest, and even like information seeking habits. Next on my list is where and how do they typically access library services? This question helps determine the most common channels and methods that your target audience uses to access library resources and services. For example, at my university, we have an online MBA program. So these students never come to campus until graduation. So all the services needed by this cohort required the use of an online platform. And what my library decided to launch a service was to have a virtual research desk using Zoom. With this service, we were able to demonstrate database navigation techniques and advanced search features, which we could not do with very well with Ask a Librarian or through an email. We found that a lot of our business students are visual learners, so that's why we decided let's go this route and help these students. That's what we're here for. The next question that I have on my list is what are their preferred channels of communication? This question identifies the most effective communication channels to reach and engage with your target audience. This could include email, maybe it's social media, or maybe it's even at just in-person events. And this could be just campus clubs, or maybe it could be maybe like a leadership speaker that comes to your location. So yes, these are different ways of people receiving information about new services that are available. And then lastly, what incentivizes them to use the library services? This question helps determine the key factors that influence your target audience's decision to use library services. Is it about convenience? You're right here on campus, or you're just skip to the local public library, or is it the quality of the resources, or is it perhaps the cost involved, right? Okay, so at this point in time, now that we've covered two key elements, which service purpose and target audience, I'd like to do another poll. All right, and so with this poll, I'd like to learn about the biggest challenge your library faced when launching a service. All right, so if we could run that poll, please.
Doris, my apologies. It looks like both poll questions were run at the same time. I'm going to share the results.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so I'll scroll down. Funding, yes. Staffing, oh, you bet. Resistance to change, yes. Change is hard for some people. Marketing, yes. Collaboration with other departments. All right, so that seems to be our lowest. Maintenance and ongoing support, and does not apply. Okay, so we can stop sharing, I guess, this poll. And I myself have, faced many of these challenges over the years as well. So I'd like to discuss the next set of key elements, which have helped me overcome these challenges. And I hope they would also help you too. Okay, so. For some reason, I don't know why, every time the poll results come up, my system just stops working. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I apologize. Okay. All right. All right, so, okay. The next key element I want to discuss is resources. These questions can help you develop a realistic budget, which we saw as one of the challenges that were faced by our group today, and also myself. So also, how do you go about, questions dealing with identifying key partners and collaborators and ensuring that you have the necessary resources in place to support the success of your service. So my first question is, what financial resources are required? This question helps identify the costs associated with developing and maintaining the service. This could include like software licenses, hardware, marketing and promotion. Is it in-house or is it outsourced? And ongoing maintenance. The next question that I have on my list is the technological what technological resources are required. So again, you need to determine the specific technological tool and the platforms needed to support that service. Would it be specific databases? Is it a particular digital content platform, or maybe even project management software? Another question that I've always used before I launch a service is, what physical resources are required? So you've got to consider the physical space, the equipment and materials needed to support the service. Is there any additional physical space? I know in my library, there's no space whatsoever. Would you need customized furniture or maybe even specialized equipment? Another question that I use is, what personnel and staffing resources are required? This question helps determine the staff and skills needed to design, implement, and sustain the service. And so maybe, that would be, well, do we need someone with a subject matter expertise? Do we need project managers helping us out? Do we need to include technical support team? And do they need to have special skills for that particular software that we're bringing in? Another question that I always use is, what training and professional development resources are required? So one needs to consider the ongoing training and development needed to support the staff and the users of the service, all right? So this could entail professional development services, sessions, or maybe user training manuals or online tutorials. So yeah, things that you need to have ready and available to support your users and also your staff. And then my other question that I like to include is, what partnerships and collaborations are required? Well, one needs to determine if any internal or external partnerships or collaborations are needed to develop or sustain the service. This can be collaborations with other libraries, maybe even vendors, or community organizers. I know that one of the services that we held in the past was with Bloomberg, and Bloomberg would actually come to our campus and conduct training sessions. Of course, now they've eliminated that program because now you have the self-paced BMC certification program that can be done, and it's for free for students. And then my last question is, what metrics and evaluation resources are required? This is an important question. One needs to determine the key metrics and evaluation methods that are needed to track the success of the service over time. So, are you going to be using like Google Analytics to track your usage statistics, or perhaps maybe use a user feedback survey software like Qualtrics or Cognitoforms? There are many options to pick from, obviously, but again, you need to put that in your list of considerations. Training is big. It's a critical component of launching a new library service. And it helps ensure that your staff and users are equipped with the knowledge and skills needed to effectively use and support the new service. So I always think of this question: what training is needed for my library staff to effectively support this library service? And, so I've got to determine the specific skill sets and knowledge that my staff are going to need to effectively support that new service. Is it learning a new software, learning how to troubleshoot common issues that may appear, and also learning how to effectively communicate the value of the service to the users. I think that's important. My other question that I use is: what training is required for library users to effectively use the service? You can put in a lot of money, time, energy, and all of this, but then you find that your users aren't using the service because they feel they are in this lost world and they're not effectively using the product. So you need to determine the specific skills and knowledge that your users need to have. Perhaps maybe to navigate the service interface, how to search and access resources. And also, the other thing that comes up is how to self-troubleshoot common issues. That's important as well. And then my other question is: what training methods would be most effective for providing training to staff and users? One needs to consider the most effective delivery methods for training your staff and the users. Would it be in-person workshops, online tutorials, or self-paced learning modules? And then I also ask myself this question: what training materials and resources are needed to support the staff and users? So this could include like user manuals, video tutorials, or quick reference guides. And then the last question under training is: how will training effectiveness be measured? You can invest a lot of time doing all these trainings, doing all these videos, putting together all these manuals. That takes a lot of time and energy. But how are you going to determine if they are truly effective in the training? So you're going to have to, again, consider user satisfaction ratings or staff performance metrics. Okay, another element is promotion. This is another critical component of launching a new library service, because it helps ensure that the library users are aware of the service and understand the value. So my first question that I think of when it comes to promotion is: what's the compelling message that highlights the value to the user, and what can they expect from that library service? Very important question. So you need to determine that specific benefit and value that the new library service is providing. The message needs to attract and drive the user to the library service. And sometimes, you have to be very, very creative. And sometimes I turn to my creative team. We have a communications team at the libraries. And sometimes I turn to them to get ideas on, what's a good catchy phrase that I can bring people in, and also it expresses the value to the students. Then my next question is: what channels would be used to promote the new service? So you need to consider the most effective channels for reaching different segments of the target audience. Which media outlets are watched by your users? Is it just social media? Is it email newsletters, or maybe it's maybe campus-wide announcements? Another question that I use is: what partnerships and collaborations can be leveraged to promote the new service? consider the potential partnerships and collaborations with other libraries, campus departments, or community organizations. I'm just going to give you one example. At my business library, when it came to promotion, we decided to collaborate with the business school's communications officer. One was for grad and the other one was for the undergrad students. And why did we choose to do that? Because they had access and controlled the business faculties and the students' email listservs. They also control the social media accounts. They also control the bi-monthly email announcements that went out to the target audiences. And they also had control of the digital signage. So that's why we decided to go and partner with them, bring them into this endeavor. And obviously we had to talk to them about the value, why it was important to make our users aware. And, so we had to get buy-in from them first. But once we got that, yes, so that they were terrific partners in all of this. My next question is, what marketing materials are needed for the service launch and continued promotional efforts? Because once you introduce a service, yes, there's all this excitement about it, but sure, you need to continue, all right, with your promotional efforts. Because otherwise people lose interest and something else is going to pick up their attention. So sometimes it's a development of suite promotional materials and resources, your flyers, your posters, your social media, your graphics. They need to be, eye-catching, and they also need to be refreshed if it's going to be a continued service. And then
we're at 26 after the hour.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then also a mix of print and online promotional materials can create a well-rounded advertising campaign that targets your audience. And then my last question here is what metrics and evaluation methods can be used. And so this will determine the specific metrics and evaluation methods that you can use to measure the success of your promotional efforts. So every time you release maybe, a promotional flyer, or the digital signage goes up, or, you notice that an mass email went out, are we getting web traffic? Are there users signing up? Are we seeing more username and passwords being distributed? Okay, so implementation. With implementation, it's very important because it involves the actual deployment of the service to the users, and it can help you develop a comprehensive implementation plan that ensures a smooth deployment of the new service to your users. So I like to consider the timeline. All right, it's important to figure out when is the right time of the year to bring out this service. At my institution, we have the MBA program. The on-campus MBA program is on a 6-week cycle. So any new library service that supports that program's curriculum needs to be implemented at the start of that 6-week course. Also testing. What testing processes are needed to ensure a successful implementation. Then also you have the other question I like to use is what resources need to be ready for the implementation. So you've got to ascertain at this point, are my personnel ready? Is my personnel ready? Is my hardware ready? What about promotional items like swag, flyers, and the signage? Is all of this ready for the implementation? And then again, your metrics and evaluation methods to measure the success of the implementation. All right, and then last but not least is evaluation. This helps to assess the effectiveness of the service and identifies areas for improvement. So you've got to consider your metrics, all right, which metrics would be used to evaluate the success of the new service? And then how is the data going to be collected and analyzed? All right. So you've got to develop a plan that considers specific data collection methods and tools which will be used to evaluate the new service. Is it user surveys, user statistics, or focus groups? How frequently are you going to be evaluating the service? Is it going to be on a monthly, quarterly, annual, or is it an academic-based calendar? And then what feedback mechanisms will be used to solicit user feedback? Also, I always like to ask myself, what is the process for improving the new service? So after reviewing the evaluation results and identifying areas of improvement, I've got to consider now, well, what is the update workflows? What about maybe improving training, because that's one of the issues that came up in the evaluations, that people don't know what they're talking about. And so I'm always lost. And that would be from the user perspective, or even adding new features, because you may get a good suggestion. And then the last question that I think is probably the most important is, what is the process for sharing evaluation results with your stakeholders and decision makers? It's so important to develop a process for sharing evaluation results with stakeholders and decision makers, such as library administrators, department heads, or funding agencies. It provides transparency, also impact value, return on investment, and perhaps future funds for service improvement or the implementation of a new service. All right, so I'd like to have us all go into a breakout rooms. The goal of the breakout rooms is to bring our minds together in smaller groups and to develop a library service that is tailored to a specific audience. You have that shortened URL right there. You can go there, or you can scan that QR code. All right, so I will leave it up to Christine to divide everyone up into the breakout rooms.
Yes, and I've placed a link to the breakout room and also a summary of Doris's blueprint in the chat for everybody.
Christine?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm seeing that there's only like one person in this room. So is there any way to like move these people around?
I'm actually doing that right now.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, never mind. I remain silent.
No, you're totally fine.
At the chat. I'm looking at the chat right now, and I did receive 2 questions. But so the first question I received is, what data collection methods do you use? The data collection method really depends on what the service is. If it tends to be like, for example, a guide that's customized to a particular course project, we combine it. It's with like user feedback to get like the Likert scale, do you agree, not agree? And then also we open it up and we ask like questions. Some of them also, it just depends. When we get some other services, we just look at how much usage it's getting. So we look at the data that's coming in and like how many searches that were done within that particular service. So yeah, it just depends on the service that we have implemented. And then the next question that I see here is, are your 6-week courses 3 credit hours? And that came in from Scott. And the answer is yes, they are. It's a highly accelerated program. So, by the second week of classes, they're already preparing for, studying for their midterms, which would be in week 3, or maybe projects that are due in week 3. And it's twice a week. And it's for like, I think, maybe like two hours. So it's like 4 hours that they're getting of class time with the professor, but I could be wrong on 2 hours. It might be a little bit shorter than 2 hours, but yes, it's very intense. And so by week 7, they are in final exams. And then they get a week off, and then they start the next 6 weeks. And that is when they are in final exams is when the rest of my constituents are in actually midterms. So the undergrads are in that midterm point at the end of their courses when they're in final exams. So we have all these schedules of when certain programs start, when do they end. And then of course, our executive MBA program, that's also an intensive program. And that program uses a different schedule, and they always start in January. So all our orientations and new services for that executive MBA program starts in January. All right, so we have hit the hour. I definitely want to thank you for participating today. And I want to share with you my email address. So if you have further questions, you need to reach me, be more than happy to provide it. Provide you with answers or suggestions, or if you just want to brainstorm together, I think that would be great. I hope you can use the Google Shared Doc that has different ideas of different kinds of services. And I just wish you the very best with any of your new library services. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Doris. And I see a question about asking to share, so I will place those links back into the chat for everybody.
Okay.
But thank you everybody for attending today. I think I'll turn it over to Angel for any closing remarks.
Thanks everyone for coming today. We do have our feedback form as well. Please fill those out, and we will have a summer symposium. So be on the lookout for details for that.